Hello and welcome to Miss Revell's Sewing Bee. This is session 4, learning all about a whip stitch. Now whip stitch is just a type of stitch that we use to fix two pieces of fabric together at the edges. So this is what your whip stitch should look like. All my stitches are a similar length and they're all about the same width apart. So I've put together this blue piece and this green piece, so that if I unfold them like this, then they stay together at the edge. It's nice and strong. Today you're going to need some thread, a needle, 2 pieces of fabric and a pair of scissors. Because you're only practicing your whip stitch today, the fabric you use doesn't need to be absolutely gorgeous. It can just be any scrap fabric that you find around the house. So maybe an old tea towel, maybe an odd sock that you have lying around, or maybe even some clothes that you can't fix or are a bit too small for you now. Just make sure that you ask a grown-up before you use anything. For step 1, first you need to measure out your thread. You don't want it too tiny and short like this, and you don't want it way too long either, just somewhere in the middle. So I did mine earlier, and I've already threaded my needle and tied my knot at the end. If you're not sure how to do either of those things, that's absolutely fine. You can just look back at basics 1 and 2 to give you a little bit more detail. Once you've done those things, you're ready for step 2. Now it can be quite tricky, this stitch, so if you find yourself struggling or you're just not sure, you can always pause the video or rewind it back to have another look at what I've been doing. For this session, you need 2 bits of fabric that you're going to sew together. So I found these old bits of felt, so I cut out 2 rectangles that are the same shape and also the same size. I need to just put them together now. There we go, so that all their edges match up. Then, to make life a little bit easier, with a pencil you can lightly just draw a line along the edges that you want to sew together. So I want to sew together this side, so just quite lightly I'm going to draw a line in pencil to show how far in I want my stitches to go. So I like to think of whip stitch as a bit like a spiral shape, because you're going up, around and down, and then back again. So you're making that spiral shape round the edge of your fabric. Got my 2 bits of felt that I've put together with this little pencil line along the edge that I want to sew together. I've also got my needle and my thread ready to make that spiral shape. So I've got the line, the edge that I want to sew together away from this bit of my hand. So it's right at the very end, away from your fingers. I'm going to start by my spiral by starting at the back on this green side. And I'm going to try and come up on the pencil line. So I'm pushing my needle up and pulling until the knot that I've made sits nicely on the back. So we've gone up through the back of the fabric, and now I want to do the round part of my spiral, and it's going to spiral round the edge of the fabric here. We're not doing like our running stitch where we go along here, we're going around the edge. So I'm going to make sure that my thread is hanging out this way, then my needle's going to come round the back, and I want to leave a little space, so I'm not going to come up directly where I put my needle before. I want it to come up about here, so I've left a little space. So I've come up through the back and left a space I'm going to pull up, making sure that the thread sits over the side. It's spiraled around the side of the felt, and you can move it just like I did, just carefully to get it in the right position. So I'll show you one more time. We're going around the side, so over here, down through the back, through the green side of my felt. I'm going to leave a little space between this stitch here and the next one. There, I'm still on my pencil line. I'm going to pull up until my spiral is resting against the edge here. Okay, so now I'm just going to finish this off. Have a look at how I do it. So that, my friends, is how you do your whip stitch to fix the edges of your fabric together. So amazing news if you've really got the hang of that. If you haven't, don't worry at all. Just keep practicing and maybe get a grown-up to help you as well. Bye for now.